You're listening to the Broken Havoc podcast on YouTube, where we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content, and as the frickin' referee would say, ring that damn bell for more notifications. What's up, everybody? It is Broken Havoc here, right here on the Broken Havoc podcast, here to review AEW Dynamite from February 2nd, 2022, coming to us from Chicago, Illinois at the Wintrust Arena. Of course, we finally got it. We finally got the match that we've all been waiting for, CM Punk versus MJF. I'm going to be going in depth on the match, and I'm going to be talking about really a lot of the moments that I really enjoyed about this match, because I will say this is an awesome-ass match, a really old-school match, but I really enjoyed this match. It's safe to say that MJF can say that he beat CM Punk twice in his hometown of Chicago, but I'm going to give you guys my thoughts on CM Punk versus MJF. Of course, we got Jon Moxley, who was originally supposed to be facing the Brian Kendrick. Of course, Brian Kendrick got pulled from the show because of some controversial comments that I will not state on this video because it's way too controversial and, really messed up comments. He got pulled from the show, and instead, Jon Moxley faced Wheeler Yuta in a really good opening match. Of course, after that, he faced off with Brian Danielson, in which some really unexpected thing happened with Brian Danielson proposing a proposition for them to fight together. So he wants him to team with Brian Danielson and all that stuff, so I'm going to be giving you guys my thoughts on that. We had House of Black taking on Penta and Pac, of course, the Kings of the Black Throne, I should say, not the House of Black, but they faced Penta, El Cerro, and Pac in a really good match. And also we got Brandy Rhodes. Yes, we had Brandy Rhodes in a segment. It's safe to say that she got booed out of the building. I'll give you guys my thoughts on that. So there's a lot of things to cover on this review of Dynamite, but really the majority of this review is going to be based on CM Punk versus MJF, considering the fact that the match was really long. It was really long, and it started way early, especially for a TV main event. So I'm going to be giving you guys my thoughts on that, but right before I get on with the Dynamite review, make sure to like and subscribe to the Broken Havoc podcast on YouTube, so you can guys get all the latest content right here on the podcast. Of course, tomorrow I'm going to be uploading Old School Showcase Episode 3, in which I will be reviewing WWE Vengeance 2006. Of course, we have the return of D-Generation X and Edge versus RVD. So there's a lot of things to discuss on that show. Next week, I'm going to be discussing TNA Victory Road 2004. TNA's first ever monthly pay-per-view event. So that's going to be awesome to see right here on the Broken Havoc podcast on Old School Showcase. So be on the lookout for those specific videos, and be on the lookout for other videos that I have right here uploaded on the podcast with, of course, my SmackDown and Rampage reviews, and of course, Raw, SmackDown, Dynamite, you name it, I will review it right here on the channel. So be on the lookout for those videos, and as always, let's get straight into the review. AEW Dynamite kicks off with Jon Moxley going up against Wheeler Yuta. Again, he was originally supposed to be facing the Brian Kendrick, but Brian Kendrick got pulled off of the show because of some controversial comments back from 2011 that resurfaced online. And look, the comments that Brian Kendrick stated, I'm not going to talk about those comments because of the fact that, they're really, really controversial, And Tony Khan, he did make the right decision, because it would have looked really bad on his company if Brian Kendrick had wrestled on that show. And, if everybody on Twitter was just talking about, the comments that Brian Kendrick has made, I mean, it would have looked really bad for the company. So I totally understand why Tony Khan pulled Brian Kendrick off of the show last minute. But that's really all I'm going to state on the situation. I'm not going to give you guys really in-depth thoughts on the situation at hand, because of the fact that, number one, it's just way too controversial, and number two, it's really something that, I'm not here for YouTube to discuss. I'm here to discuss the wrestling shows and the wrestling itself. I'm not here to discuss comments like what Brian Kendrick has made. So that is what that's basically my stance on this. But really, I'm not really going to be going and talking about this whole situation. Again, it was pretty much, you can't really blame Tony Khan for the decision that he's made. And, these were really not so good comments by Brian Kendrick. So hopefully Brian Kendrick can clean up his act, and he changes his ways. Granted, this was back from 2011, but I mean, you know what? I believe that people can change, and I do think that Brian Kendrick has changed, but hopefully, I do. Is this the end of Brian Kendrick? No, but, you never know, but I don't think this is going to be the end of Brian Kendrick, but those were some really, 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 really controversial comments and not really good comments by Brian Kendrick. So hopefully he gets his act together. And, again, this was the right decision, unfortunately, by Tony Khan to make. It would have looked really bad on the company. So again, this is probably the best decision to make. But we got Jon Moxley going up against his replacement, Wheeler Yuta. And I will say, this was a really good match. I really enjoyed the match for what it was. The match was not bad at all. A really good opener for Dynamite. But really, the most important thing that happened was after the match, where Bryan Danielson basically proposed that Jon Moxley and him should work together. But I'll talk about that later. First, I'm going to be talking about the match. Danhausen is on the outside. Of course, Danhausen made his AEW debut last week in the Lights Out match between Adam Cole and Orange Cassidy. So that's great to see. But the match starts. Both lock up. We get a side headlock by Jon Moxley. We get a shoulder tackle by Jon. We get an arm drag by Wheeler Yuta. We get a couple of waist lock switches by both. We get a drop kick by Moxley. Moxley's on the outside. He proceeds to face Orange Cassidy. Yuta then tries to go for a suicide dive, but then gets caught into a sleeper hold. Yuta then escapes. He hits a shotgun dropkick onto the outside. Moxley then throws Yuta to the mat. We get a stomp by Moxley. We get a cover and a near fall. We get a couple of chops by Moxley, and then we get a couple of chops by Wheeler. Then we get a chop by Moxley again. Moxley's on the outside, but then Moxley hits a pile driver on Wheeler Yuta after that. Then Moxley applies the STF submission. Then Yuta's on the top. Moxley then comes in with a couple of chops. Then Moxley goes to the top. We get a headbutt by Yuta. And then we get a drop kick by Yuta. Yuta then hits an enziguri. Then Yuta goes to the top, but then Moxley goes to the apron. Both fight it out on the apron, but then Moxley dives Yuta headfirst onto the apron, so that looks really painful. Moxley then faces Cassidy. And then Danhausen curses Jon Moxley, quote unquote, and Wheeler Yuta out of nowhere takes him out from the top. We get a German suplex by Yuta. We get a cover and a near fall. We get a roll-up attempt by Yuta. We get a near fall again. Moxley then hits the cutter. Yuta then escapes the paradigm shift. Then he plants Moxley to the mat. Takes him out from the top. We get a cover and a near fall. We get a couple of rights and lefts by Jon Moxley after that. Moxley then hits a slap. A really stiff slap, I should say. Moxley then catches Yuta into a sleeper hold. Then he hits a clothesline. Hits a couple of elbows. Moxley then hits the paradigm shift. We get a cover. 1, 2, 3. Jon Moxley beats Wheeler Yuta in this really good opening match to open up AEW Dynamite in Chicago. Overall thoughts, this was not a bad match. Again, this was a really good match. Wheeler Yuta, as always, looked great. The guy is really good. Guys like Wheeler Yuta and guys like Dante Martin are just flat out amazing. But, of course, the right man went over, rightfully so, and Jon Moxley won this match. But really, that wasn't the important thing that happened. The important thing that happened was the segment after with Bryan Danielson, when Bryan Danielson came into the ring, and, they had a segment, and I will say this was a really good promo segment, if you really want to call it that, between Jon Moxley and Bryan Danielson. Of course, Jon Moxley, of course, didn't do the talking. It was Bryan Danielson. But both face off. Danielson asks the crowd if they want to see them fight. The crowd is cheering, of course, these past couple of weeks on Rampage. They have been teasing Bryan Danielson, looking at Moxley's matches, and a lot of people were speculating, even including myself, that we were probably going to be getting Jon Moxley versus Bryan Danielson at Revolution. I still think that is the planned match, but I'm going to be continuing on with this promo that Danielson cut, and then I'll give you guys my thoughts. He says for a long time, he wanted them to fight too, because he was different. But since he has came back, we have seen a new Jon Moxley. Deep inside, there's always been a part of me that wanted to test him. That's a quote by Danielson. Because he was watching him as the AEW World Champion. He doesn't care what anybody says, and he was the best AEW champion. So, nice putting over by Bryan Danielson. Then after that, he said if he had a little support, he'd still think he would still be the AEW World Champion. That's when he realized that Jon Moxley and Bryan Danielson shouldn't be fighting. They should be fighting together. And here's the deal. There's no reason why a millennial cowboy should be the AEW World Champion. There is no reason why somebody dressed as a dinosaur should be an AEW World Tag Team Champion. There is no reason why somebody's main contribution to society is creating a vlog should be the TNT champion. Together, they can run this place. Whatever they want. If they wanted to take someone like Wheeler Yuta under the ring, I mean, he's coming out, for God's sakes, with guys like, Orange Cassidy. He's coming out with jokes, as Danielson would state. What if they took somebody like Daniel Garcia out of 2.0 and mentored him and put him under their wing? Somebody like Lee Moriarty, instead of being with Matt Sydal and Dante Martin with his high-flying bullcrap. That was a really nice line by Brian Danielson. What if they train the future of professional wrestling together? Even if they don't like the fans, if the fans don't like him, what he's talking about right now, they like. He knows this is a lot of to put on Moxley's plate right now, but Danielson after that asks him to think about it. So yeah, Danielson gave a proposition basically to Jon Moxley to have somewhat of a partnership with Moxley, and basically wants to fight alongside Jon Moxley. So what are my thoughts on this? This was a really interesting segment. This was not bad at all. I actually really enjoyed this promo segment. Do I think this is eventually going to lead to a tag team of sorts or a mini faction of sorts of Moxley and Danielson? No, I do not. I don't not see that happening. I definitely do see this being part of the storyline in which, this eventually, Moxley would turn it down. Kind of like a couple of years ago when the Inner Circle tried to recruit Jon Moxley, but instead, of course, Jon Moxley swerved them and eventually beat Jericho at Revolution for the AEW World title. I definitely do see a scenario like this happening, of course, with Moxley rejecting Danielson's offer, and then they eventually begin to start feuding. Of course, they would have a couple of segments where they would just go at it verbally, and then they would have their actual match at Revolution. Now, in regarding Danielson's case, I actually really, I could have, as much as I would love to see Moxley versus Danielson, I still would have booked Danielson versus Hangman 3 at Revolution. That's just me, because I would have booked that match into an Iron Man match for Revolution, and it'd be really awesome. That's what I would have booked. And I thought that would have been pretty awesome, but of course that is not going to happen. Honestly, we do not know what's going to happen with Hangman Adam Page headed towards Revolution, but we'll see what goes down. But in this case, I definitely do see a swerve coming by Moxley, and I definitely do see them wrestling at Revolution. This was a fantastic promo segment by Danielson, by the way. I really enjoyed this segment. It was really interesting, and we're off to the races. We'll see what happens in the next couple of weeks on Dynamite, but hey, you never know what can go down. We get a video package building up CM Punk versus MJF, which is the main event of Dynamite. Then we get a segment with Brandy Rhodes. Yes, we get a segment with the executive, the chief brandy officer, I should say, executive vice president, chief branding officer, or chief brandy officer, I should say, Brandy Rhodes. When Brandy Rhodes came out, man, look. I'm gonna give you guys my full thoughts on this segment. Look, I was not, my thoughts on this segment is that, really the segment, first off, Brandy Rhodes being in the middle of the ring came out of nowhere. It was kind of like when Nyla Rose came out last week and challenged Ruby Soho to a match. It came out of nowhere. And, I really don't like that, but it is what it is. Of course, the crowd is absolutely shitting. And I mean shitting like crazy on Brandy Rhodes. Poor Brandy, I should say. Poor Brandy Rhodes. And I feel like this was something intentional, but still, I mean, like, the crowd just booed the hell out of Brandy Rhodes. Dan Lambert comes out for the first time. Of course, this is one of two times that he came out. He came out later on in the face-off, or I shouldn't say the face-off, in the segment with Lance Archer and Hangman Page. But Dan Lambert comes out. Of course, they had Brandy Rhodes and Dan Lambert had somewhat of an altercation at Daily's place on the last Dynamite on TNT. But he says that she needs a reality check, that she can pretend that Cody earned a spot in this company, but she is as fake as those bulldogs popping off her t-shirt. So Lambert going at it like crazy. Acknowledges the hate that she is getting from the crowd. So that being Brandy. Brandy is acknowledging the hate that she is getting from the crowd. And, when Brandy tried to go for those one-liners, those retaliations verbally against Dan Lambert, it did not work. It did not work. She tried to retaliate verbally, but it just did not work because of the fact that the crowd was just so against Brandy Rhodes, man. I felt bad for Brandy Rhodes, I will say that. But, yeah. Dan feels like he says that he feels like a decent human being next to her. And then Brandy proceeds to speak, but then we get shut the fuck up chants by the crowd. she says that, Brandy then says that it's a little telling that his best fighter got knocked out by Jake Paul. And then, of course, she mentions Nanda Nunes, says that he should spend more time in American Top Team than in AEW. Then she proceeds to slap Dan Lambert. Then he has a better idea for her, and then Paige Van Zandt, I think her name is. I completely forgot. I believe she's an MMA fighter. I do not follow MMA, so bear with me here. But she comes in and goes after Brandy. And then the entire women's locker room comes out to break them both out. Did anybody care about this segment? I'm going to be honest. Did anybody care about this segment? I'm going to be asking you, the viewer. Did anybody care about this segment? No. I did not care about this segment either. Am I excited to see a match between these two? No. Absolutely not. I am not interested to see a match like this. I'm just not. I'm just saying, This was something that just came out of nowhere. I can't believe they're still playing this whole Dan Lambert versus Brandy Rhodes thing. I thought that was dead after Daily's place, but no, apparently this whole feud is still going on, in which, they really haven't mentioned anything about the feud ever since they moved to TBS, but it made no sense. Why is this segment happening? Probably to kill time. You never know, but they got so much other things going on in AEW right now. I think this is the last thing that they should have, in my opinion. This is the last thing that they should have. We get Andrade and the Hardy family office backstage. Of course, Andrade made a deal with Matt Hardy. So now I believe it was Andrade owns 50% of the Hardy family office. I think that's the storyline. But says he's disappointed, that being Matt Hardy. And then Matt Hardy says that Isaiah Cassidy wants to win the TNT Championship. Or I think I should say Isaiah Cassidy is going to be winning the TNT Championship. Of course, he's going to be facing Sammy Guevara this Friday at Rampage, which already happened, by the way. Andrade comes in and says they lost. And then Matt asks Andrade why Darby is not signed. And then Matt says this Friday Isaiah Cassidy needs to win the TNT Championship. So there's a lot of quote-unquote, I don't want to say tension, but it is what it is. I mean, do I care about the Hardy family office? I mean, not only that, it's not just the Hardy family office, it's Andrade. I mean, Andrade has, this is the best you got for Andrade. I understand that there's a lot of things going on with AEW right now, but most likely we're going to be getting a match with Darby Allin and Andrade. I think that is the match that is definitely going to be happening at Revolution, considering where they're going with, Andrade wanting to sign Darby Allin. But again, aside from that feud, that feud with Darby Allin, him partnering with the Hardy family office, makes no sense to me, but it is what it is. I feel like they can do a little bit better with Andrade. We got Kings of the Black Throne, Brody King and Malachi Black versus Penta El Zero and Pac. Overall, this was a really good match. Of course, Pac, I should say, came out with the blindfold. And Pac and Malachi start. Black tries to go for the right, but Pac ducks. Pac then with a couple of kicks. We get a sliding drop kick by Pac. Pac then takes off the blindfold, so he reveals that he can fully see. We got a double somersault by Penta and Pac on each corner of the ring. Penta tags in. We get a shotgun dropkick on Malachi. We get a cover and a near fall. We get a kick by Penta. We get a couple of right hands by Penta. We get an overhand chop by Penta. Pac then tags in. Brody King then hits a sledge on Pac. Then Brody King tags in and works on Pac. Burns her back from break. Pac is in control. Pac then escapes the sweep by Malachi. Then Penta tags in. Pac goes for a sling blade. Then we get a DDT by Brody King. Then we get a kick on Black. We get a roll up by Black and a near fall. Then Penta goes for the backstabber. We get a cover engineer fall. Then Malachi blocks the kick by Penta. Pac tags in. We get a rising knee strike by Malachi Black. I was about to say Alistair for 1 second. We get a cover engineer fall. We get a sliding knee strike. We get a cover engineer fall again. We get a released German suplex by Pac. Then we get a brainbuster by Pac. We get a cover and a near fall. Brody King then interferes. Then Penta and Brody King exchange shots. Penta goes for the Gamagiri. Then we get a crossbody on the outside by Penta on Brody King. Then we get a middle rope somersault by Penta on the outside. We get a couple of thrust kicks by Penta and Pac. Pac goes to the top. He tries to go for the fear factor, but then King pushes him out. Malachi then spits the mist on Penta's face. Then what happens? Dante, he hits the Dante's Inferno by the Kings of the Black Throne. That's their finisher, Dante's Inferno. We get a cover, and Malachi Black and Brody King, the Kings of the Black Throne, win the match. Overall thoughts, this was a really good match. I'm really enjoying, Malachi Black and Brody King. I'm not really that familiar with Brody King. I've heard a lot. I've heard a couple of things about him on social media, but I'm not really that familiar with him, but it's great to see, they got, this whole tag team going on with Malachi Black and Brody King. It's really good to see. And I think, from their entrance, I mean, I love their entrance. I mean, their entrance is really awesome. I also really enjoy, Malachi Black's solo entrance. I think that's great to see as well. Pac and Penta are always a great duo. I for one, loved Death Triangle. I thought Death Triangle was really awesome. And, I love the teaming up with Penta and Pac. But, of course, Penta got the mist on him. So are we going to be seeing him for the next couple of weeks? Who knows? But we'll see what happens. Of course, Kings of the Black Throne went over in this match, and that is safe to say. Adam Cole is backstage, and he says that he is still undefeated after that loss against Orange Cassidy, and he still doesn't get the respect he deserves. Of course, yeah, everybody's complaining about Adam Cole's booking. Everybody's going to see a new side of Adam Cole, and he will fight Evil Uno this Friday on Rampage. When it comes to Adam Cole's case, Adam Cole is definitely feud. Again, I've stated this previously on Dynamite Reviews. He's definitely facing Omega once he comes back. Now, there is a report out there that Kenny Omega's return is still up in the air, so we will see what happens there. But in the meantime, they're booking him to wrestle a couple of matches on Rampage, which I like the fact that Adam Cole is wrestling on Rampage because again, it gives you a reason to watch the show. I definitely do think once Omega comes back, shit's gonna get real when it comes to Adam Cole. That's just my opinion on things, but he's going to be wrestling Evil Uno on Rampage, so we all know who's going to be going over in that match. It's going to be Adam Cole. We get Nyla Rose versus Ruby Soho. This was last week, of course, when this match was announced. I stated last week that was like, this is a match that just happened out of nowhere. Like, Nyla Rose just came out of nowhere and just challenged Ruby Soho to a match. I mean, I was like, what? But I will say this is a really good match. Ruby Soho sold a lot for Nyla Rose in this match. Ruby Soho knows how to sell and put over people really well. But Nyla Rose did beat Ruby Soho. Nyla Rose did go over in this match. It sucks that Ruby Soho lost considering the fact that, she is the babyface, but they want to apparently establish that, Nyla Rose is the strong force. But in my opinion, I was never, I was a big fan of Nyla Rose when AEW first started. And I thought it should have been the right decision to put the belt on her to be the first AEW champion, but that wasn't the case. Of course, they put the belt on Riho. Of course, Nyla Rose did win the AEW women's title, but then after that, she lost the title to Hikaru Shida. And then ever since then, I really wasn't that interested when it comes to Nyla Rose. And of course, they paired her with Vicky Guerrero. And there's a little bit of that interest back, but really, I was never, ever since she lost the title, I was not really that invested in Nyla Rose, in my opinion. But overall, this was not a bad match at all. Nyla Rose is in control. We get a slam by Nyla. Nyla then misses the leg drop. Nyla then has Ruby up and hits a Samoan drop. We get a cover and a near fall. Nyla is in control. We get a suplex by Nyla. We get a cover and a near fall. She continues to have control over Ruby Soho. We get a stomp by Nyla. Then she takes Ruby to the corner. We get an overhand chop by Nyla. Ruby then proceeds to fight back. We get a headbutt by Nyla. Then we get a slam by Nyla. Then she hits a leg drop. We get a cover and a near fall. Ruby then fights back, but then Nyla hits the Death Valley driver. We get a cover by Nyla and a near fall. Once we're back from break, during commercial break, Nyla is in control, but once we're back from break, Nyla tries to powerbomb Ruby onto the apron, but then Ruby Soho fights back, but then picks up Nyla and drops Nyla face first onto the apron. We get a spine buster by Nyla on the floor outside. She takes Ruby to the ring. Ruby then hits the no future. We get a cover and a near fall when Vicky Guerrero interferes after that. Then she gets caught, but then Ruby goes after Vicky Guerrero, but Nyla comes in and hits the neck breaker. Nyla then goes to the top. We get a chop by Ruby. Ruby then goes to the top and then tries to go for a Hurricane Rana, but Nyla counters. Then she wants to go for the Beast Bomb, but Ruby escapes. She comes back. Nyla then hits a senton. So once Nyla's up on the top rope, she hits a freaking senton off the top rope, which I will say, that was a really good spot. I didn't expect Nyla Rose to do that. But then she hits the Beast Bomb. We get a cover. 1, 2, 3. Nyla Rose beats Ruby Soho. Again, kind of sucks that Ruby Soho lost, but I really do not know what to say of this. But we'll see what happens when it comes to Nyla Rose's case. I definitely do see her being in contention for the TBS championship. I would love to see a match between her and Jade Cargill. Even though Jade Cargill is still pretty green, I would still love to see a match between the two. The Gun Club backstage meets up with Jungle Boy. Jungle Boy tries to fight them off, but then the Gun Club send him outside and send him into the snow. So that's that. Of course, the Gun Club are going to be facing Jurassic Express for the AEW World Tag Team Championships. And yeah, we get Hangman Adam Page. We get a segment with Hangman Adam Page. Of course, he's going to be facing Lance Archer next week in Atlantic City in a Texas death match, which I'm actually really excited about. I'm glad that they didn't book this match for Revolution, because I thought if they had booked this match at Revolution, I would have been really disappointed, and I would have thought that that would have made no sense whatsoever. But thankfully, they booked this for Dynamite. Of course, Hangman gives his thoughts on the Texas death match, and he says 81 days he has been the AEW World Champion. He is still waiting. Hangman then doesn't give a shit. He needs something. He doesn't need it next week. He needs it tonight. Of course, your typical babyface saying that type of stuff. Nothing against Hangman, though. I'm a big fan of Hangman. He says he needs it tonight, and he challenges Lance Archer to a fight right here, right now. But Dan Lambert and Jake Roberts comes out. Jake Roberts says that he probably has nightmares and he smells fear. But then Archer instantly comes out, and they both proceed to brawl. Dan Lambert then tries to hit Hangman with the chair, but then Archer comes in and hits him with the chair. Yeah, I think that's what it is. But then chokeslams Hangman onto the steel steps. He picks up Hangman. Then he hits the blackout through the table onto the timekeeper's area. So this really makes Lance Archer look strong. But is he going to be winning the AEW World Championship next week? Absolutely not. Again, I see a guy like MJF beating Hangman Adam Page. That is my opinion, and I guarantee you this will happen. Chris Jericho backstage is talking about Santana and Ortiz. He talks about them not tagging him in last week, and he says it was really stupid. And he's basically now demanding an Inner Circle team meeting next week. So it's really interesting to see what happens here. Of course, there's going to be a lot of tension regarding Santana and Ortiz and Chris Jericho, but really, Sammy Guevara is also part of the Inner Circle. What is Sammy Guevara's stance on this whole situation? What is Jake Hager's stance in this whole situation? We'll have to wait and see, but things are getting a little bit weird when it comes to the Inner Circle, and you know what? I'm really invested in this. I'm really interested to see where this goes. Would this eventually lead to Santana and Ortiz eventually turning on Jericho and joining up with Eddie Kingston, and then they'll have their own faction? Of course, they were LAX back in Impact Wrestling, I believe back in 2018. They were like a newer version of LAX, of course, because the original version of LAX was Conan, Hernandez, and Homicide. But this was like a newer version of LAX. I don't think AEW does not have the rights to LAX, but I feel like they're going to give them a new name if they eventually, form a faction together. But we'll see what goes down. One thing I will say, and I've stated this previously on my Dynamite reviews, Santana and Ortiz, I felt like they should have been they should already be the tag team champions. I don't know why they weren't booked in, title contention. Of course, the Inner Circle wasn't a huge feud with the Pinnacle last year, but then after that, really, Santana and Ortiz, in my view, should have, been one of the guys to win the tag team titles, at least either from the Young Bucks or from the Lucha Bros. I felt like it would have been much better if it was against the Young Bucks, but of course, that honor went to Penta and Phoenix in that fantastic match at All Out last year, which was by far, in my opinion, the best match of 2021. But yeah, we got the main event, which started mad early with CM Punk and MJF. Yeah, so this match started really early. And it started really early. The entrances started to happen around, my bad, guys. I am actually, really tired from, the semester starting and stuff and school and stuff. I am, really tired right now. And I'm hungry too, man. But I got to give you guys this video because I really want to grow this channel. But, so we got MJF versus CM Punk. Yeah, man, this match was awesome, man. I really enjoyed this match. It was a really fun match to watch. Very old school style match. I will say this right now. Very old school style match. And, hats off to CM Punk for putting over MJF. Of course, CM Punk suffered his first loss in All Elite Wrestling against MJF in his hometown. And I tweeted this on Twitter. Oh, I don't have the tweet right here, but I tweeted on Twitter that 2022 is the year of MJF. And I stand by that statement. I stand by that statement because of the fact that, again, MJF is dead ass is going to go to superstardom. Bro, this guy is predicting his own, bidding war. This guy is predicting his own bidding war. You hear MJF talk about the bidding war of 2024 between WWE and AEW. That is definitely going to happen in 2024. I mean, you hear these stories about Fox and WWE wanting to sign MJF to a contract. I mean, like, bro, you know for a fact AEW and WWE are going to fight for MJF in 2024. So this guy is predicting everything. And that is one of the things that makes MJF so special and probably one of the best heels in the business today, because of the fact that the guy knows what the fuck he's talking about. The guy is not stupid whatsoever. And you know what? Hats off to MJF, because MJF is going to be a fucking superstar. No matter what company he goes to, this guy is going to be a fucking superstar. And this is the first step right here. With him, facing CM Punk and CM Punk actually putting him over. I mean, bro, we got a lot of shit to talk about. And again, 2022 is the year of MJF. And again, bold prediction right here. And I've stated this before on previous videos. And I even tweeted this out and made a prediction on Twitter and posted this on my social media. Look, this guy's going to win the world title. This guy is beating Hangman Adam Page. It's the most logical thing to do. This guy is going to win the world title and is going to have a really long title reign. Guaranteed, bro. This guy's going to cause a riot in Las Vegas. It's going to happen. But we got CM Punk versus MJF, and this was a really good match. I really enjoyed this match. It was a really fun match to watch. A long match, but a really good match. I loved the storytelling here. Not only that, I really loved the selling. There's a lot of selling in this match. And I mean, like, Punk was selling a lot. He was selling his knee. He was selling a lot. And, of course, in the middle of the match, I'm going to be talking about that. You can't say that MJF did beat CM Punk twice. But, I mean, at the end of the match, he did win under controversial circumstances. But, again, it's MJF we're talking about here. So, of course, he's going to be doing shit like that. And not only that, he is a heel. But we're going to be talking about going through the match. CM Punk goes after MJF, but MJF retreats. We get a right hand by MJF. Punk then regains control in the corner. We get a kick to the chest by Punk. We get repeated right hands by Punk. We get a shot to the back of MJF onto the outside. MJF then goes over the guardrail, just like in that six-man tag that we saw with FTR and MJF going up against Punk, Darby Allin, and Sting. He runs away through the crowd. Yes, he runs away through the crowd. Punk then gets a drink from a fan and shoves it to the face of MJF. That was great to see. Punk then works on MJF in the crowd. He has MJF sitting on the railing, which looks painful. Then Punk sends MJF over the guardrail. He takes MJF back into the ring. We get a body slam by Punk. We get a second slam by Punk. Punk then goes for a third slam and then hits a fourth. Punk then goes to the top, and then MJF escapes. Then Punk runs shoulder first to the post, and then MJF takes the hand of Punk onto the table and knees it in the timekeeper's area. Then we get a jumping knee onto the wrist of CM Punk, which looked absolutely gruesome, man. Like that I could tell that hurt. I could tell that hurt. But once we go to commercial break, MJF is in control. Once we're back from break, MJF is in control. He takes Punk to the top. MJF also goes to the top. Punk with a couple of elbow strikes. Punk then goes for a crossbody off the top. We get repeated rights by Punk. We get a swinging neck breaker by Punk and a jumping knee into the corner by Punk. We get a running bulldog by Punk after that. Then after that, Punk retreats to the apron once again. Punk comes in. Punk then body slams. He body slams MJF on the apron. I almost missed my notes right there. He lets him hit an overhand chop on MJF. Then Punk goes to the top and MJF interferes. MJF then goes to the top. He hits a superplex by MJF. I think that was a superplex. I think I missed that spot, so I assumed it was a superplex. But correct me if I'm wrong if that was a superplex or not. But we get a cover engineer fall because I missed that spot. I missed that spot because I was taking notes. Punk then counters and hits the Pepsi twist on MJF. Then MJF takes the referee. He takes the referee as a shield. And then MJF has something and chokes Punk with it. It looks like some sort of tape, as the commentators were stating. Then the referee can't see it. Punk is beginning to fade, and then the referee raises Punk's hand 3 times. Punk passes out, the bell rings, and MJF wins. But then the referee sees what MJF has, and then the match continues. So I will say this. I love the storytelling here of MJF just taking any measure to beat CM Punk. It didn't matter if he has to cheat, because that's what MJF's character is. But I mean, bro, that was really great to see, man. I actually legitimately thought that was the finish and something crazy was going to be going down after that, but that was not the case. The match continues. So that was awesome. I like how they added that in the match. We get a roll up by Punk and a near fall. We get a right hand by Punk. Punk then sends MJF into the corner. We get repeated rights by Punk. Punk then goes for an atomic drop. Then we get a lariat. Then Punk tries to apply the sharpshooter, but then MJF breaks out and then sends him to the outside. MJF is in control during the commercial break, but then MJF wants to go for the pendulum pile driver, but then Punk pushes him back. We get a springboard clothesline by Punk. Then he picks up MJF with one arm. Yes, he picks up MJF with one arm, but MJF lands on the apron. We get a springboard dropkick by Punk. Then MJF is on the outside. We get a suicide dive by Punk on the outside, but then MJF lands really badly onto the guardrail. Both get back in the ring. We get a kick by MJF. MJF then goes for the double stomp onto the left arm of Punk that looked absolutely gruesome and painful. And I know I've stated painful so many times on this video, but like, bro, that was a spot that definitely looked like it definitely hurt CM Punk. Then MJF applies a submission on Punk, but then Punk reverses it and applies the STF. Then Punk goes for a bridge pin attempt, but we get a near fall. Punk then picks up MJF, but then falls by selling his knee. We get an inside cradle by MJF. We get a near fall. We get a side headlock takeover by MJF. Then Punk goes for a roll-up and a near fall. MJF goes for the ankle lock, but then Punk reverses it and sends MJF face first to the middle turnbuckle. We get a right hand by MJF. Then we get a chop by Punk. Both exchange shots. Then Punk catches the boot. MJF then goes for the thumb to the eye of CM Punk. Then runs into a right by Punk. Then Punk goes for a Poison Rana. I love the Poison Rana, man. It's probably one of my favorite moves, man. It's such a badass move that you don't see it a lot, but like, you know, when it happens, you know, it happens for a reason. And I love the fact that Punk hit the Poison Rana. I love that spot. But then we get a cover by Punk and a near fall. Punk is selling his knee. MJF then tries to go for the armbar, but then at this point, MJF is selling his neck after that. MJF then goes for a chop block. Punk misses the roundhouse kick, but then MJF hits the chop block, and then we get a right hand by Punk. MJF then goes for a driver. Then we get a waistlock by Punk, but then MJF hits a low blow without the referee looking, so that is typical MJF. We get a roll-up by MJF with his foot onto the rope. Once we're back from commercial break, MJF is in control. We get a roll-up by Punk and a near fall. Punk then goes for the leg lariat after that. Then he sends MJF into the corner. We get a knee by Punk into the corner. MJF then bites the head of Punk. Then he takes Punk to the top rope. Then Punk bites the head of MJF in return. And then he hits the Pepsi Plunge, a move that we really haven't seen CM Punk do. We haven't seen CM Punk do that in a long-ass time. I can't recall a WWE match. Maybe he has done it, but I can't recall a WWE match where he has done the Pepsi Plunge. But I'm going to have to go back and watch a couple of CM Punk matches because, you know, quite frankly, I do not recall him doing the Pepsi Plunge in WWE. But this is the first time he's done the Pepsi Plunge on WWE, on AEW TV. Correct me if I'm wrong. MJF rolls out of the ring, but then Punk takes MJF back in. MJF then takes Punk for a tombstone, but then Punk reverses it. MJF then reverses it and goes for a near fall. Punk then goes for a roundhouse kick, but then Punk goes to the top. He hits the elbow drop, cover, and a near fall. Then Punk sets up the, I think it was the go to sleep where he set up. But then MJF retreats to the outside again. Wardlow then comes out. He walks up to Punk and faces him onto the outside. But then Punk takes MJF inside the ring. Punk faces Wardlow. MJF from behind hits the Dynamite Diamond Ring on Punk. Yes, he knocks him out with the Dynamite Diamond Ring. We get a cover. 1, 2, 3. MJF. Maxwell Jacob Friedman pinned CM Punk in his own hometown of Chicago. Wow. There was a lot of shit that went down in this match. You know, my quick thoughts on the match. This was an awesome match. I love the fact that, you know, AEW gave these guys a lot of time because, you know, this match was phenomenal. You know, I loved the storytelling in this match. You know, this match was not, you know, this match was more old school than, you know, your modern style matches. Because MJF, if you look at a wrestler like MJF is not like, he's not like a wrestler like the Young Bucks or like a Dante Martin or Sammy Guevara. He's more of an 80s style wrestler because of the way he sells. From top to bottom, like the guy is like the full package. He is the full package. And again, like he's an 80s style wrestler from the way he sells, from the way he wrestles. Like he wrestles really old school. Same thing as FTR. Now with FTR's case, FTR wrestle like they have a mixture of old school and new school and they blend it together. And that's what makes FTR special. But with MJF, like the guy is strictly old school, man. The guy, you know, the guy knows how to wrestle like really well. And not only that, I mean, MJF is just phenomenal at what he does, promo-wise and wrestling-wise. And, you know, the fact that CM Punk actually put him over goes to show you, why he came to AEW for. And this is definitely going to elevate MJF in the long run and eventually put him in the main event title scene. Guaranteed. But this was the best decision for AEW to make. CM Punk suffers his first loss in All Elite Wrestling. What is the next for CM Punk? Who knows what is the case, but there's a lot of things that are going to be going down, not only in MJF's case, but in CM Punk's case as well. So, yeah, that was CM Punk and versus, I should say, MJF. And that was AEW Dynamite from February 2nd, 2022. Overall thoughts on this show. This was a really good show. Of course, this whole show was built around MJF versus CM Punk. But overall, I enjoyed the show. It was a really fun show to watch. I really enjoyed it. MJF versus CM Punk tore the house down, in my opinion. A really good match. And CM Punk suffering his first loss in AEW. And this is only going to elevate MJF in the long term. And it's safe to say that CM Punk lost twice to MJF. Not only that, 2022 is the year of MJF. So, yeah, that was my Dynamite review. Please like, subscribe, comment down below, push that bell for notifications, and be on the lookout for more content right here on the Broken Havoc podcast. But as always, this is Broken Havoc from the Broken Havoc podcast, signing out.